Let us now listen to the welcome remarks of the President of Our Lady of Fatima University. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Caroline Marian S. Enriquez.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doctora,
Hello.
we can hear you,
Good
Doctora.
morning,
Good morning.
everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to this very timely seminar on mental health awareness. I realize that we are all doing our best to cope, to address, and to fulfill our work. And so far, congratulations, we have been doing fine. We have been coping adequately. However, let us not forget that we must also take care of our emotional and our mental well being. Today, we are lucky that this talk on mental health will be given by two experts, Professor Ricardo de Vera and Dr. Luzviminda Katigbak. I am sure this will provide the much needed and important highs and some tips on how we can take better care of ourselves so that we can become more normal in these strange times. We hope to be able to help out so that we would not be able to feel so isolated or disconnected in our current world. So with that, this will be one of the series of first for our mental health well-being. So with that, I welcome each and everyone to our seminar, and I hope and I thank everyone for taking the time to attend. Back to you, Gilson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Enriquez. We would also like to inform everyone that joining us this morning are our administrators, college deans, and department heads. And we would like to acknowledge the Vice President for Academic Affairs and the Chairman of the Faculty Development Committee of OLFU, Dr. Heracleo D. Lagrada, is also with us this morning. We would also like to remind everyone that you may use the Q&A box here in Zoom for your questions, which we will discuss later in our open forum. But for immediate messages or shout-outs, you may type them in the chat box. I am sure that everyone is now ready and excited to learn from our speakers who will help us in understanding the topics of today's webinar. Our first speaker is a graduate school and business professor, a behavioral psychologist, a counselor on personality and attitude, and a certified strategic consultant in Singapore. He is a trainer and specialist on people productivity and organizational alignment, a certified instructor of the European Training and Competency Center, and a certified facilitator of DISC and situational leadership in USA, a book reviewer and a contributing writer for leading newspapers and magazines. He is also a certified sales professional in Australia and New Zealand and a consultant of the Department of Tourism and Tourism Promotions Board. Our speaker is also a member of the Association of Trainers and Facilitators Asia Pacific Region, a holder of Master in Business Administration degree and Advanced Strategic Studies from Japan International Cooperation Agency, and a Strategic Business Negotiation Scholar in Geneva, Switzerland. To explain to us more, infusing joy in the virtual workplace, work from home, wellness from home, let us welcome Professor Ricardo de Vera.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gilson. And thank you as well for introducing me to the group. Can I just wanted to make sure, can I be seen already as well? And my presentation, we can show first my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to say welcome to everyone. And the topic that has been assigned to me is something that I really would like to share to everyone, but I'd like to say, can we keep an open mind? My being a professional facilitator as well actually makes me very challenged because of this pandemic. And I usually tell people when they attend the session to keep an open mind because I will be sharing with all of you, okay, how to actually be able to infuse joy in this kind of a situation that we have right now, the virtual workspace situation that is not really going to be that easy if we try to think about it from what we usually would hear in in other talks probably on how we should be working from home. Okay, so I'd like to start first by moving to my next slide. Okay, can I have my next slide, please? It's a quick poll survey. Where are you located now while you're attending this webinar session? You have three choices. And Jilson, you can probably help me here. Let's encourage our participants to type in so we can get a feel where most of them are right now.
Yes, participants, please start answering.
I hope we don't have shy participants for this morning.
So can we take a look at the result now? Okay, Professor Ricardo, 87% of our participants said that they are right now in their homes, while 12% are in their offices, and only 1% is in a public place.
Okay, that is a very, very revealing situation. That imagine 87% are talking about we're now in our work from home, and for me, wonderful because it tells us as well you're not the only one. Many organizations are still having their people work from home, and what we'd like to do is can we make it more meaningful? But before I move on to strategies that we can use, I'd like to ask the next question. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this one is a more open-ended. How do you find this current pandemic situation you are now experiencing? Gilson, maybe one or two who can give their answer. I'll be fine with it. I just wanted to get the pulse of our audience.
Participants, please start typing your answers in our chat box. How do you find this current pandemic situation that you are experiencing? Please type your answer here in our chat box. So, Professor, some of our participants are saying that it is very stressful. Some are saying it is challenging, frustrating, traumatizing, overwhelming, tiring. So these are most of the answers. Some also said motivating, it's tough, it's troublesome, it's hard but challenging, it's difficult,
Wow.
it's draining,
Yeah.
sad, exhausting.
Okay, Gilson, after hearing all of those so far, I just like to clarify: am I given a full day to do the webinar because of all of those
No, no.
responses that they have, ladies and gentlemen? This is okay. I'm given 45 minutes, but hearing what our participants are saying tells us really their state, right? Where they are right now, and truly, my good friends, it is not easy. It is not easy. And let me therefore share this as I move on. Thank you. We have a very active audience. Jilson, I want to give them a round of applause. I mean, this is going to be very meaningful, active audience, and I really appreciate it. Now, let's move on, my good friends. Thank you for being candid in your sharing. I'm not sure how many of you have heard. Can we move on to my next slide then? Okay. as we now take it, I don't know how many of you have heard of The Economist. It is a business magazine in Europe, uh, and coming into 2020, it was in 2000, end of 2019. I was asked by The Economist. They sent one of their senior writers, and in the Philippines, I was the one interviewed. Okay, how do I see the world in 2020? Okay, and they feature that as well. There you go, the growth matters. And I answered that the way I saw 2020. By the way, I'm also an economist, and I do help in governments and in many businesses, in many associations, how to look at the future. And this was my answer. Can we go to the next slide, please? My answer was 2020 would be a disruptive year. And the senior writer who was interviewing me was really flabbergasted. He said, "Professor, I have interviewed so many other thought leaders in the world for our feature. You're the first one who has said that the world will be disruptive in 2020." And that he was really taken aback, and he was asking me why. My answer was this one. I said, because the only thing we are certain about the future is it will not be the same as the past. And when things are doing well, I see a possible disruption. Please don't get me wrong here. That's why I ask all of you at the start of this session that I'm giving to keep an open mind. I'm not a negative thinker, but I am, if I call it, I can forecast and I have foresight. And based on, I'm already 60 years old. Uh, let's not talk about age here, but many people are saying, "You're 60." And I say, yes, because I'm defying, because people say, "You don't look like 60. Well, that's my role to look at the status quo. And the way I see the status quo is that when things are doing fine and everybody settled down, that's where disruption comes in. And I call that risk. And you know what, my good friends? I'm reading now a lot of people who have read that article and have met me and telling me, "Professor, you got it all right. It is a disruptive 2020." And why not? And let me make it very clear. This is not a negative way of looking at things. This is the way I see things. Okay. And why? Can we go to the next slide? Because I even say to people now, we are not in a crisis situation. And people are asking, "Why did you say that?" I'm also a business advisor. Okay, I've helped many multinational companies all over the world. I said, we're not in a crisis situation as well. Why? Because a crisis situation is a situation that is short term. It hits you, but it's short term. So you say, we're in a crisis mode. Like, if suddenly, don't get me wrong here, but if it's an emergency, right? You come in and say, we're in a crisis mode. When your house gets hit by a typhoon, we're in a crisis mode. But for me, that's it. That's not prolonged. What do we have right now? It's already been 9 months, okay? 7, 8, 9 months, and we're still in this pandemic. And that's why I say, can we go to the next slide? This one is going to be very important as a business advisor as well. We have turned this, we are in a disruptive landscape. My colleagues in the graduate studies programs of the various universities in New York, in London, I go visit them. We have all agreed that from a business perspective, we do not have a crisis. We have a disruptive landscape. What a paradigm. And when we say it's a disruptive landscape, it means to say it's gonna move on. It's not gonna be short term. It's gonna move on. That's why I had this question: how do you see what you are in right now? Because it's not going to stop right away. This is going to be a landscape. And when it is a landscape, I hope people can now appreciate where I'm coming from. We gotta be prepared for the long haul. So what is probably unique in the way I look at things is, yes, I'm a behavioral psychologist, but at the same time, I'm a business advisor. I'm a strategic consultant. Okay. and I'm an economist. And when I put those three together, I see things from a different perspective. Can we go now to my next slide? Okay. A disruptive landscape, and it has actually shown. The first, I would always say this, are we ready for the waves? And this is for everyone. Are we ready for the waves? What was the first wave that came in? The first wave was the physical health. Physical health. Let's go to the next slide, please. What is this physical health? First, let us not forget, in the Philippines before the lockdown was Taal volcano. And the biggest challenge of Taal volcano, remember in January, was the ash fall. I guess our medical professionals will agree with me here. People were frantic already. That was the start of the disruption. And then in March, we came in with a hard lockdown, the coronavirus pandemic. And it's still moving. It's still moving. It's still moving. It's still moving. Uh, and that's where I say this is a landscape. When people would ask me, Professor, when do you think should this all end? This is what I also say. And please don't get me wrong here. But again, I look at things so differently. I tell people, if you start asking when will this all end, then you're not ready for the long haul because you're anticipating it should end. My paradigm, and I'm a thought leader, I'm being termed as a thought leader by publications and many professionals. I usually will say, I don't even wait for this to end because nobody knows when this will end. Even the WHO does not know when this pandemic will end. So why don't I instead, can I use now a terminology that is very important in psychology, condition myself. I want to condition myself that as this pandemic moves on, I will not question when it will end so that I am not, anxious about it. I am rather conditioned that I am going to be able to manage myself as this pandemic moves on. You can quote me on that, my good friends. I have stopped asking when this pandemic will end. But I will not question if you'd like to ask it. But from my end, that's why I'm sharing this session. My paradigms is different. Paradigms are different. It doesn't mean it's correct, but that's how I'm able to move on. I'm able to move on. People say, Professor, you look a lot younger because of this pandemic. I said, no, it's not the pandemic. It's because the way I have conditioned myself. Can we move on, please? Next slide. I hope I'm making sense to our participants there. And remember, the COVID cases in the country continues all over the world. And one thing that I say is because I'm a person who is very analytical, I say, the way it's being presented, it's cumulative. That's why it will always go up. That's statistics. What I'd rather take a look at is how many new cases per day, how many morbidity per day, and I'll tell you, it explains a different story altogether. And take note, I'm a contributor of Inquirer, I'm a contributor of Business World, I'm a contributor of the newspapers in the country. So I know that information that we give to the public conditions the public's mind. And that's why when I read items, I read that headline, I do not make an assumption or conclusion right away. I read through the details, and that's why I can move on. I will not even recommend you stop, because I've heard some people say, stop reading the news, stop listening to it. No, if you do that, you don't know what's happening. But my advice is this one, get to know what is happening, but work through the details. That's the one that's very important. Can we go on, please? Next slide. My next slide. And this disruptive landscape will continue. It will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, Metro Manila, the mayors have said until end of December, they'd like to keep the GCQ. Next slide, please. Imagine. Then we go to the second wave. Because of this GCQ, because of this lockdown, our economy has been hit. That's the second wave. Next slide. And this second wave actually has affected a lot of businesses. And I'm very much into, I was a former banker as well. And Secretary Carlos Dominguez was a colleague of mine in the financial institution industry. And when I was listening to him speak in one of the Malacanang briefings, what did he say? Okay, we have to start accepting the reality that today we have to live with this virus, okay, and for a long period of time. So where am I coming from? Conditioning. That's a conditioning. We have to live with this virus, okay, and we have to go back to being productive. Next slide, please. And when Malacanang last September also announced that they are extending the state of calamity. And I'm very much abreast on times because I do economic briefings, as I said, and I do work for Malacanang and various government agencies. When that state of calamity was extended, and it was extended, and this is Presidential Decree 1021. And what was that? The extension of the state of calamity all over the Philippines for one more year until September 2021. It already tells me, it triggers me. Online classes would probably be all the way up to 2021 September. Because what did it say? We have to be ready for this pandemic moving forward. So what you see now, what you're hearing now, what you're feeling now will probably be there until next year. So if you follow me, I've conditioned my mind. I've conditioned myself that webinars, online, virtual will be now part of the new normal. Let's continue, please. Next slide. My next slide. And then, of course, we have heard the IATF has also been mentioning we will continue to implement lockdowns, but now on a community level. We will continue to have all of the security protocols. So, my good friends, where is all it leading to? Next slide. It is leading now into what? That we have got to understand people will be discouraged to actually go out, but rather stay at home. And that's why the virtual workspace is something that is now really influencing many, right? Influencing many. And your answers to the survey earlier, imagine more than 80%, 87% are working from home, whether it's your choice or whether it is a requirement. The thing is, it's a work from home. It's a virtual. Let's move on. But, next slide, please. But all of this, as you now move on in this pandemic, okay, as you stay at home, the virtual, as things are not yet getting back to the pre-pandemic, I don't want to say normal. I don't want to say, I hope things will get back to normal. I'd rather say, if people are saying, you mean before the pandemic? And people say, why, Professor? What's wrong with, I hope we go back to normal? My answer, because for me, this is the normal now. This is the new normal. What we have right now is the new normal. Why are we in denial? This is the new normal. And the new normal now challenges mental health. With all of these things that is happening, COVID is still having cases. The economy is trying to win back its momentum. And people now are being asked, you have to continue being productive in a landscape that is disruptive. All those are the terminologies we use with our business conferences when we talk to management of many companies. Next slide, please. The mental health crisis. And look at what is leading into. Next slide, please. Take a look at my next slide, ladies and gentlemen. What is it leading into? Even the World Health Organization has mentioned that as we move on, coming into next year, towards the end of this year and coming into next year, mental health and psychosocial considerations will continue to be the challenge. Next slide, please. I'm giving you now a roadmap of where we're coming from. The DOLE, where I'm a consultant, the DOH, where, believe me, I'm also doing some programs for DOH, and DTI, where I've been an advisor for the last 20 years. They even came out with mental health memorandums, how important this is to everyone. Next slide, please. But I'd like to make this clear as well to people. Okay? When we say mental health, people are usually talking about how you think, and they say it's how you think. So where is the connection of the psychology in it? So let me just make it clear to those who are not in the know about it. And this is what the Dole has in their memorandum order. What did Dole say? That mental health actually, when we read through it, it's not just about how you think. How you think is for me, is the last result. Mental health is the condition, okay, of a person's well-being, okay, that is starting from what we have around us, and then it enters into we call it the limbic system. This is the brain, the limbic system, where your emotions are, where your memory is, where your sensitivities are. And that's the one now that actually is conditioning many. And when that portion of your brain, although it is located in the brain, but it's more related to emotions, to psychology. When that one is not managed well, then if I were to call it the cortex, the thinking side of the brain is affected. That's what it is. And that's why there's many wherein they cannot think, even if they work from home. Isn't it true, my good friends? You're already working from home, but you cannot seem to get more focus on it. It's because your limbic system has taken over your cortex, the thinking. And that's what is my talk all about. That is the phenomena. And when I share it from that perspective, a lot of my listeners and viewers are, aha, I never thought of it. I was just thinking that they have so many things that they're thinking about. No, my good friends, from my perspective, people can't even think now well because psychologically, emotionally, they are hijacked because of the sensitivities around them. Next slide, please. And this was actually proven with surveys showing that people at home, 44% are saying, I'm at home. I'd like to stay home because I'm supposed to be safe. But how come I cannot get my act together? Isn't that a phenomenon? I'm already at home, but how come I cannot get my act together? Okay. How come I cannot think very well? Next slide, please. And as I said, it's because of the psychology in you. And that's why I've been working and been invited, and I appreciate it. I keep on now talking about coping with your emotions, managing yourself through this pandemic. That's very important. Next slide, please. I get to also be invited now to get to talk, not just on emotion. Can we see the next slide, please? Because this is what people are affecting. Just recently, all the newspapers in the Philippines invited me for their conference, and they made me front page because they're saying we are media and we're affected. And the way we also right now is getting to be affected. And my approach there is it's because your thinking is now hijacked by your emotions. And so there is that clarity now and appreciation. Let us not take lightly the psychology and the emotions within us. Next slide, please. And you know what is even so interesting here, my good friends, is not just Filipinos. Can we have the next slide? Okay? Not just Filipinos, but what is even interesting, my good friends, is that even international organizations are also saying, we want to know more about this. So their productivity is being affected. And this one is critical and very important as well. So where I'm coming from is that this landscape, next slide, please. This landscape that we have is now really testing because even the North, the AmCham, the NordCham, which is there, I hope you can see this. This is the Chamber of Countries with offices here in the Philippines, from Norway, Sweden. They also invite me to talk about how can we be productive when many of our people are working from home. So this is not just exclusive to the Philippines. This is a global challenge. It's a global challenge. And I really feel honored that they're even inviting, Europeans, inviting Filipinos like us, like me, to speak to them. I mean, really, ladies and gentlemen. So this pandemic does not choose nationalities, but what it says is, how can we move on? Next slide, please. Okay. And all of these things, even I'm now doing this on a every 2 weeks basis. Our Filipinos in the Middle East, they have linked up and they're asking, Professor, how can we move on? We're in another country, but we're working from home and there's so many uncertainties. And now is the time to really to inspire people, and this is very important, very important. So I'm just sharing that what we are discussing right now is not something that should be taken simple. It is very, very important. Next slide, please. But I'd like to now share this. Okay. Even Dole has sponsored my sharing to many on mental health based on Dole memorandum. So this is really important, my good friends. Those who are listening right now, what you will be hearing in the latter part, as I'm about to enter now the part of the strategies, please share it also to many, because psychology, emotions, they have hijacked the way we think, because of what is happening. Next slide, please. And look at where this is all leading into. Okay, cabin fever. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of that. Cabin fever is the situation many are in right now. What is that? When you are isolated in a place and work from home, you're in your home. So if you stay there for quite a long time, cabin fever, that's a psychology terminology, creeps into you. And what does it do? Because you are now isolated in your home, you try to avoid going out, but you have to do work. This is what happens. Next slide, please. This is what happens. You now have cases of claustrophobic, it's a phobia. Sometimes feel uncomfortable going out, sometimes feel uncomfortable being in front of a screen, virtual. I mean, how will I look? All of these manifestations actually hampers the productivity of people. So this is where we always say, how long have we been in this lockdown? Almost 9 months. Welcome to cabin fever, because you have gone through the boundaries already. And that one definitely affects the conditioning of people. And what we're hearing now is also this one. Can we go to the next slide, please? Something that I have to say to everyone. Work from home means, as an employee, where you work in the school or you work in the hospital, as in the admin probably, you're now being asked to work from home. Bring it to the house. This is the question I always ask. Have the Filipinos been used to work from home? The answer is no. So what has happened here is we have actually sort of forced our families to accept our work, and we will do it at home. For me, that is the phenomena that has not been properly addressed. Next, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, yes, that's where I'm coming from. The employee work from home, brings it now to the home. The home was never ready for this. So wham, that is exactly what has happened. All of a sudden, the home is now an office, and members cannot understand that. That is what is the missing link here. Let's move on. Next slide, please. And that's why there has been also a strain in relationships at home. My topic is not about work-life balance, my ladies and gentlemen, but I'm leading you to the journey. I have a separate session on work-life balance, but I'm leading you to the journey wherein the work from home was the way to get us away from the pandemic outside, but we were never conditioned on how to do it properly. Next slide, please. I hope I'm making sense now. Take note, it says work from home, not work from house. A house is a structure. A house is a structure. My question is, when you were building your house, or when you got your condominium or your apartment, did you actually identify what area there you will put as your temporary workplace? Many answered no. Exactly. Because our house was never planned to be an office for many. Next slide, please. So what has happened then is home is even more challenging. Remember, work from home. You can live in a house that doesn't feel like a home. And for me, this is very close to me because to be a home, it needs that the place is a place that people sense their belongingness, okay? That people will feel comfortable. And we did not say work from house, work from home. I hope you can see the visual that I have there, right? The family, and there's the home, and the father or the mother is bringing home their work, but they never forget this is a home, not an office. Next slide, please. And for me, where is this headed for? Can we have the next slide? Because the next slide is going to be very important. And based on my research and working with many as well, this is what we found out. Okay, what we found out is that the tendency, because we have not been conditioned to work from home, is that can we check on the next slide? Okay, this is the way I see it. Work from home becomes challenging when the conventional office setup and mentality is applied. Have you heard about others when they talk about when you work from home, you got to have this, you got to have this, you got to have this, you got to have this? This is what I mean. Next slide, please. Look at what many are doing. You know, and this is I've seen in so many of my friends as well and my clients as well. I say, what are you trying to do? When they ask me, Ricky, this is how I work from home. I said, why? Sometimes it's like I will work from home, but I'm gonna say do not disturb. There should be a specific area that is allocated for the office work at home. There should be an office ambiance so that sometimes when wife, I want you to be quiet. Husband, I want you to be quiet. And then you start thinking, I got to get my office furniture here. We got to buy something else. When you start talking about, I got to buy something and put it in my house, that's an additional cost. And then we have rules and regulations like when Papa has to have this work from home, you got to be quiet. When I'm thinking, you know where I'm coming from. And I hope you can connect where I'm coming from. What we have been trying to do is to bring the office in the home. And for me, that is where many of the challenges are happening. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is what I'm seeing some people say. I have to bring home my work, and therefore my family members needs to understand and to cooperate with me. I am a priority. Wow. If that is the way we bring in our home office work, then I'll tell you, you will always have a very, distorted family appreciating us. May you think deeply of that statement I just made. When you are a priority, I understand you being homework, but if you tell your family members, I'm the priority, everybody keep quiet, shut your mouth, we've got all of these rules, what are you trying to do? That's where I'm coming from. You're removing joy. You're removing joy in yourself. You're removing joy in the family. I move on. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Remember, it's not just you, but your family members as well. Whether they're your grandparents staying with you, whether it's your relatives who stay with you in your abode, whether it's whoever it is. It's not just you. Next slide, please. And because of that, okay, work from home using the conventional concepts of workspace leads to more family conflicts and stressed family members, including you. There is no joy in work from home the way it's being done by many right now. I'm not saying all. Some has found the solution. Many have not. Okay. Next slide, please. So what do I want to do? Now I want to share with you, let us infuse joy in the virtual workspace. Work from home will be a standard. It will be there. It will continue to be there for a long period of time. But can we create wellness while we are working at home? Can we infuse joy? Okay. So I now would like to share with you, I'm going to write also a book about this, but I'd like to share with you, this is what I've shared to many, and they have come back and said, Professor, iba ka mag-isip. Thank you very much. You have provided more meaning now to me in work from home. And let me now move into the last part. It's a short but very important. Okay, let us create meaning. Next slide, please. Joy. Let us bring joy, the emotion of great delight or happiness caused by something exceptionally good or satisfying. So you got to make this happen. Next slide, please. And I'd like people to please do remember though this. The joy we will feel has little to do with the circumstances in our lives. It has everything to do with the focus of our lives. What does this mean? You know, I hear people talk about I cannot concentrate in my home because I live in a small space. I live in an apartment. There's children here. You know, we have so many circumstances that we're forgetting. We have to understand the circumstance, but the joy, if we want that to happen, is not about the circumstances. Everybody goes through those circumstances. It is about the focus we put in our life. And so therefore, this is the way I'd like to share how to put focus in your life and joy. It's a given. You might have a small space, you don't have an area for work, but you got to work from home. So here are the ideals I'd like to share. Next slide, please. Very important now. First, start and end each day with a gratitude, ladies and gentlemen, as we are given the opportunity to make it meaningful. I always like to say this, every day is different. So why don't we start and end each day with a gratitude? Either, you know, you clap your hands or you jump in the air. You know, nothing is stopping you. Remember, you're at your home. If you try to do that in the office, probably your supervisor will say, what are you doing? Why are you jumping? I hope you can connect where I'm coming from. You know, when you're at home, you can do things you cannot do in the office. So start and end each day with a gratitude. If you want to jump, jump. That's fine. That's how you start the day and you want to end the day. Okay. Also, I'd like to share this, ladies and gentlemen. Can we stop the share first? And I'd like the spotlight, please, to me. I want to share this. Okay. I want to share this. Can we stop the share first? I want to share this, ladies and gentlemen. You know what this is? Let me share with you. Do you have a gratitude journal? That's very important. And one thing about the gratitude journal, people will tell me, but Prof, that means to say gratitude. Okay, fine, that's wonderful, but I have to write on it? No. You know, gratitude journals are not supposed to be now all about text. You can draw on it. I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. Start the day. If you want, have an attitude journal, draw on it. That's the first thing I'd like to share with everybody. Okay, let's go back to the sharing. So start the day, start the day, start the day. Share screen. Next one. I want to share this. Next one. This is very important. I realize inform. Can we go to the inform? The inform and encourage conversations with your family members. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, we have intruded in the home. We have brought our work in the home. We cannot dictate. We cannot demand. That's for me. That's for me. I'm bringing in work in home, which is supposed to be a place of rest, of joy. Am I making sense to our participants? I hope you can chat it in if we're making sense now. And for me, what's very important is look, don't surprise your members, inform them what is happening. And I'll tell you, even toddlers, even kids, they can understand. Encourage conversations. This is very important. That's my second sharing. You want to enjoy and have joy? Yes. I hope I'm making sense. Inform and encourage. Don't isolate your family members, please. Third, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, I see many are saying we're making sense. Okay, take care of your body. Your body is talking to you. Take care of your body. Your body is talking to you. Now, please watch this. Can we stop the slide share and spotlight again to me? I want to share this, ladies and gentlemen. This is so important. You know, the tendency when you're working from home is, oh, I got to have a chair, you know, a chair. And have you ever tried staying and sitting in a chair for so long? You know, you have like sometimes your shoulders, sometimes your back, you know, it's kind of uncomfortable. But that's in the office. when you're at home, I don't think you're being dictated to have an office chair. And because your body is now going to signal to you, you know what, you know, I am having these aches already. So what do I do? And I hope you don't mind. I'll be very candid about it. Let me share with you. You see what this is? You see what this is? This is very soft. There are cases I sit down on it. It's soft. I can, I feel good about it. My buttocks, they feel relaxed. If you follow me, I have a chair that is really, an office chair. But when my body is signaling to me, and there's some aches already, I cannot disregard that. So I have that. Or there are also cases that if I have to go on virtual, and I'm going to share with you a secret now, and I feel it's going to be a long one, I have this. It's a small stool. It's a small chair. It's a small chair. Now, what do I do with that small chair? Because if you have a small chair, I can slide into it. I adjust my laptop. My foot is now more relaxed. What I notice in many people when they have their virtual meetings or online here. So yeah, I hope you can relate. I might look funny, but this is to stress the point. Why do we have to be so stiff when we're working from home? I hope I'm making sense. Can we go back now to my screen, share screen? Okay. Then here's another one. Very important. Be a discoverer. Take the trip to Jerusalem. Where am I coming from? Okay. Look, ladies and gentlemen, what I've noticed in many when they work from home, they only have one place in their home where they always work. It's either one corner of the whole house or the bedroom. And I'll tell you, that's so bland. Try to ask yourself, in my place, in my home, I have my bedroom. I have probably, if I have children, the room of my children. I probably have the dining area. I hope you can follow me. I probably have a small sala. You see where I'm coming from? So for me, what do? I am a discoverer. Uh, let's say on a Monday, I have a webinar or I have a session or an online coaching. Okay, I'll think about it. Okay, it's gonna be very serious. I gotta do it in my bedroom where I have a space for where I'm gonna work. Okay, but uh, there are cases that I say, okay, I want to do it in my kids' room, and I'll ask, of course, permission. That's very important. I ask permission from my son. Can I stay in your room for Tuesday? Because there's an area there. And you know what? They appreciate it because they know they're helping me. And so I realized, therefore, because of this pandemic, I know better now my home. I do some sessions where I'm in the kitchen, depending, of course, if it's a no, it's a on a session, a social session on online. I have a place where I do it in the sala. Can we please be a discoverer? You've got a home there. You don't have a hole in the wall. Again, I hope I'm making sense. Take the trip to Jerusalem. Next slide, please. Another idea I'd like to share here. Okay, another idea I'd like to share here. Can we have the next slide, please? So, you don't need a big space. Okay, release the slide before that. Release the tension. When you're working and there's so much tension, it is very challenging, right? Because it can show, it and manifest in your actions. So this is what I'd like to share to all of you. Can we stop this share screen, please? And I just like to emphasize this. I hope you don't mind if I just stop share and show myself. When I am in a laptop, and I'm talking to someone and I feel that, I'm being stressed out by the discussion, I have my squeeze ball. But of course, I don't show it. It's on one side it's on this side, while my hand is on this side. So as I am feeling the pressure, I bring it into here. And so, because manifestations is very important. In psychology, it's manifestations, how you look. You don't even have to say that I am, pressured. It will show. So I hope you can, these squeeze balls, these stress balls, they're not so expensive. And they bring joy to me. They will bring joy to you. I hope I'm making sense again. You don't have to agree, but that's the reason why I'm sharing some of this. Can we bring joy in the workplace? Yes, as long as you have an idea of how. Slide screen again, please. I'd like to continue. A few more. Okay, a few more. I hope some people are taking down notes as well on this one. Okay, next slide, please. What else can we do to have joy in ourselves? Can we have the next slide? Surround yourselves with happy moments and inspiration. Okay, surround yourselves with happy moments and inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'd like to share. Surround yourself. You know, many times what I have seen, can we stop share, please? This one is also very important. Many times what I would see is a person, of course, looking at you, and then at the back are a lot of pictures, okay, of the family members, etc. That's good enough. But for me, can you see this? Okay, it's pictures of my family, and you know what? I don't put them at the back of my wall. Here is my other laptop. When I work, and I feel a bit, there's so much tension. I look at the pictures, I get a smile in my face. I don't have to look backwards. I look at each side. And there are cases I even do it this way. So whoever said, all the people are saying that your table should be clean, fine, but you might not have joy there. For me, I like to put on around my table things that will hype me, make me happy. I need joy. I'm working from home. I need joy. So I hope this makes sense again. I hope I'm making myself very clear. I'm trying to do something like this. This is so clean. Yeah, fine, but you have pictures. That's going to be a lot different, ladies and gentlemen. Can we go back to share screen? Can we go back to share screen? Okay. Then of course, a sensory landscape. And that means to say, as much as possible, this is where I'm also sharing. Try to put some posters at your back. Yeah, try to put some posters on the side, where at least when you see, because what are you trying to do? Okay, working from home also means to say, as much as possible, people don't talk to you while you're working, right? But you got to manage your psychological and emotional states, and the colors and the posters, they can attract joy in us. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, I see some people are showing some smileys or thumbs up, so I guess they're appreciating this. Get your sunshine perk and bring it in the workspace. Get your sunshine perk and bring it in the workplace. So what do we mean by this, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, I'll be very clear about this. This is so important. Okay. Some people are saying very motivating, very inspirational. Here's one more. Can we stop the slide share screen? Get your sunshine perk and bring it in the workplace. Ladies and gentlemen, when I know that I'll be doing work, whether there'll be online or not, but it's during the pandemic, I got to bring my sunshine in. Can you see this? This was a gift to me by my son. And this is my sunshine. And so when I'm now in my work area, in my workspace, if you can follow, every time I look at it, as I'm working, it brings joy to me. I mean, how can you defeat that? You're the best dad ever. I hope I'm making sense. And that's why mabili po. For me, this Christmas, if you're going to give gifts to people, you might as well give them mugs with inspiration. Because I bring this to me in the workspace. Very interesting. Next slide, please. Can we go back to slide share? Okay. If you follow, I'm giving you all of those things so that you can see. Set the ambience that sets you in the mood. What does that mean? Because, when you talk about psychology and emotions, it's about your senses. It's about your senses. And I'd like to share this, that one thing that is also very important is when you're working, okay, doesn't have to be in front of a laptop, but when you're working and you want to be, on yourself and to get concentration, Can you stop share, please? I want to share this with you. I remove this. Scents. Put scents. You know, and the aroma. You know, it it influences joy. It brings joy to us. You and then you can choose as well. Okay? You know, in the office you can do this, right? But in your home, I mean, who's stopping you from putting the scent? You know, it's like a bergamot waters or whatever you like to call it, chamomile, joy. And I'll tell you, as you're, I love it. I love it. Okay, and then so people, what do? Right? Your family members, they are not ostracized. They say, Papa is normal, you know, Mama is okay. Okay, let's move back to share screen, please. I'm about to end, my good friends. I'll be share screen, please. And then we be putting it back now. I'm giving you a lot of ideas that I have shared and kept people really seeing joy in a lot of things. You know, uh, share screen. Okay, here's another one. Green your workspace. You know, the thing about it is we're all contained already in our room, in our apartment, in our house. You cannot even go out so much. And, you know, as they say, we need oxygen, we need oxygen, we need oxygen, we need oxygen. So, my good friends, I'd like to share this to all of you as well. Can we stop the share screen now? Just so that you can see where I'm coming from. What is stopping you from putting greenery around you? This is for me, this is joy, right? You know, because it gives you oxygen at the same time, it's giving color. I mean, can we try to think about how to make our work from home colorful? Let's move on. I go back again. I go back again to share screen, my good friends. Okay. And then, you know, reinvigorate, of course, the energy, create the sensation. Okay. And this one is very important. This one is not very important. Reinvigorate the energy, create the sensation. Now try to think about it. Stop share screen. I just like to share this, also very important. I, you know, if you're in the laptop for so long, it's physically draining, etc. So one of the things that I do, this is a secret, but because you're all my friends, and I hope you can consider me your friend, let me share with you one of my secrets. You know, all of the things that's happening goes down to our legs and to our foot. And now you're gonna see, and I see a secret I do. I have this. Okay. Just so that we are clear on it. What is this? Okay. I put my foot on it. I'm in a online session because they don't see my foot. And then I roll my foot on it. It rejuvenates me. You know, it sends sensation to me. It widens me. I feel happy about it. And that's why you know, these are the, if I call it, the trade secrets of joy. Hello. So now you know. You can also give this as a gift. And it has to be spikier and soft. And I'll tell you, it's so different, right? Because we can go out now to have our massages, right? So why not massage ourselves when we're doing our online or our work from home? Okay, go back to screen now. And as I, so many, right? I guess that's true. I don't want you to spend so much. I want practicality. That's where graffiti wall. Here's another one, graffiti wall. Okay, how does this work? Okay, let's stop share screen quickly. This is very important. What's a graffiti wall? It's something like this. It's a whiteboard. It's a small whiteboard. And there are cases like in the middle of the day, I'm working from home and I feel stressed, and I probably say stress. I write it down there, stress. And you know what? I put it in a common place where my children are, my wife can be. And you know, I remember I there was a time that my apo visited and saw the word stress, and she's 5 years old, 4 years old, and this is what she did afterwards. She drew this. And so I asked her, what is that? And said, Lolo, this is me. This is you. You're stressed. This is, my golly, ladies and gentlemen, I needed that break. I needed that break. You cannot just say simply, it's all me. You gotta appreciate life. So, I have this small whiteboard, and when I'm stressed or whatever, or toxic, or I need an answer, I allow them to draw. Very practical. And there's so much joy. And then, my papa will say, I help Lolo, I help Lolo. I love it. There's joy, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not get stuck. Let's go back to slide share. Okay, I know I have to now end, and there's still so much. Wow, and we're more than 965 already attending. You also have to make sure you reward yourself, my good friends. Please do not forget this. Reward yourself. And what does reward yourself mean? Quick one, slide share. This is just going to be quick. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not on an online, for example, but you're doing work, can we stop share? And I'd like to just share this quickly. How do you reward yourself? Fruits. And put it beside you, right? Put it beside you as you're working. As long as you're working, nobody's looking at it, or if it's a casual conversation, I feel when you say online, it's not all serious, it's not all professional. Sometimes you can be a little bit more relaxed. Hey, I hope you don't mind that. I mean, just and this candidness adds casualty and joy in it. So let's go back to slide screen. Let me therefore do this, my good friends. Many things that you can actually do. Okay, you can, the kaleidoscope is about talking to your family members, getting ideas from them. Don't stop them. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, we can also do know when to cross the Rubicon. One of the biggest challenges in working from home is that sometimes you have home duties, correct? Home duties. And so you don't know when to stop because you got to be ready now for working. And I have this suggestion. It's called know when to cross the Rubicon. The Rubicon is like when you reach that point, it means to say you got to now move to the next thing. So and this is what I remembered. You have to have that trigger, and this is for me very important. When I go to a karaoke bar before, and we're enjoying, we know once they start playing this famous Frank Sinatra song, "My Way," it means it's closing time. So that's for me is crossing the Rubicon. If you want to be triggered by something to say you now have to be working already and you're at home, play a music that when you hear it, it triggers you. Oops, after this music, I should be in work mode already. Instead of an alarm, sometimes an alarm is even daggering. Next slide, please. And enjoy your workplace. You got to be more creative in your workplace. I mean, this is what I've been saying. Why do we need to exactly bring how the office looks to our home? Don't do that. You will get frustrated. Next slide, please. Uh, be mobile, be transient, start moving from one space to the other, in a day or in a week in your home, and you'll find your home more meaningful. Ed, one more slide, please. This is going to be very important. You got to also have what I call moments of vulnerability. Okay, and what is that? During lunch, as much as possible, you can request your family, can we have a late lunch? Because for me, lunchtime is the time to be able to be vulnerable. That next slide, please. Let's go for the next slide. That's where you are vulnerable. You can talk to your family members. And now my family members are open. Okay, Dad, okay, we'll have a late lunch, 2 o'clock, right after your webinar. And then they can tell me, you could have improved on this, you could have improved on that. I'm vulnerable, but I find joy in it because my family members cares for me. And my last sharing, there's a lot. I'm gonna come up with a book on this. My last sharing, at least for this session. Next slide, please. My last sharing is appreciate a family member's contribution, though how simple it is. Really, there are times that after working for so long, and I'm in the home, you know, my daughter would come and give me a shoulder massage. I appreciate that. That brings joy to everybody. So my good friends, you know, I'm talking here in terms of my own personal. This is something that I have experienced. That's why I'm sharing to all of you. Therefore, my last few slides now, my good friends, there's still so much that we can do. Next slide, please. There's so much I have shared with you. But what is so important is let us make work from home a rich and diversified sensory experience every day so that we can bring joy in our workspace. Rich and diverse sensory experience. Next slide, please. Because if that is our agenda, remember, as I said, then there is joy in work. There is no happiness except in the realization that we have accomplished something. And that's where I came from, right? That joy is not in the circumstances, but rather the purpose. And what is your purpose? That as you work at home, you are able to make your home still meaningful to the members and to you and enriching because you have accomplished something. What is that? You have strengthened your family bond. You have strengthened your own personal. You don't. If some of you don't have families, I've shared with you the greening. I've shared with you the fruits. You have conditioned psychologically yourself as well. Next one, please. Next slide, please. And so therefore, the joy of life comes from our encounters with our new experiences. We were never ready for a work from home, but we cannot make it impossible to make it meaningful. There is no greater joy than to have an endless changing horizon, for each day to have a new and different sun. Next slide, please. And I have a Facebook page. I hope many of you, I see now 981. I hope all of you can start following and liking my FB page. It's Ricky De Vera, MBA, CSP. And I put in there a lot of my thoughts, a lot of my ideas, and this is one of them. Uh, I put in a poster just because the environment is changing, and this is going to be moving forward does not mean it is enough to change. The way I see it is that each of us needs to transform. Make the best of what you have. Stop complaining. Find joy in what you do. And I have shared with you, if I were to call it very practical to make our work from home meaningful. And so with that one, again, I'd like to share my last slide is I do hope my sharing has been practical to many. I find work from home should not be a burden. And if you'd like to follow and have more of these ideas, please follow me in my FB page. And thank you. I hope I was able to contribute a meaningful session on how to bring joy in the home and workspace. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ricardo De Vera, for sharing specific useful tips that can help us in instilling joy and wellness in the work from home setup. Thank you so much. We would also like to acknowledge the administrators and MANCOM members of Fatima University Medical Center who are also joining us this morning, especially Dr. Oscar Payawal, the Medical Director of FUMC. Good morning, Doc. Our second speaker for this webinar is a psychiatry consultant at the Makati Medical Center, the Medical City, and St. Clair's Medical Center. She is a volunteer at Ruben M. Tanseco Center for Family Ministries, a ministry undertaken by the Society of Jesus and its lay partners, and the Vice President of Philippine Psychiatric Association. She is also the president of Samahang Mataguyod sa Gawaing Pangkaisipan and a faculty member of the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. To discuss, ma'am, sir, or managing anxiety, adopting to new methods Strengthening Individual Resilience During the COVID-19 Pandemic. Let us all welcome Dr. Luz Biminda Katigbak.
Thank you, Gilson. I was really moved by the first lecturer. Thank you, Professor De Vera. And I would like to confirm, validate what he has been saying a while ago, because right now, as I am talking, I have here by my side this one, okay, which I easily get hold of when I need parang relaxation. And as we are talking also, Professor, this one, can you see the smoke? Okay, so I am doing just that right now. It's not because I'm stressed already by giving this lecture. No, of course not. But this is preventive. Okay, so we take care of ourselves, especially us in the helping profession. And you too, sa Our Lady of Fatima University and sa medical school, you are also in the helping profession, no? So first off, no, I would like to thank yung I would like to thank Dr. Carolina Marian Enriquez, Dr. Yvonne S. Guevara. Dr. Carolina Marian Enriquez is the president of OLFU, and Dr. Yvonne S. Guevara, chairman of FUMC and OLFU. Of course, Dr. Rodelia Macaspac, your vice chairman, University Faculty Development Council, because she gave me a free hand on choosing the title for this morning's webinar. I chose this title, no, it's just like an epiphany, Ma'am Sir, no, Ma'am Sir during COVID-19 pandemic. But the Ma'am Sir stands for managing anxiety, adapting to new methods. And the SIR stands for strengthening individual resilience. And kasi naman, 'di ba, in school, no, in universities, we're used to being called ma'am at sir. Hindi lang yung mga teachers, kundi pati na rin yung nasa administrative department. So, 'di ba, ang gandang pakinggan, ma'am, sir, para hindi nyo rin makalimutan our learnings this morning. Okay, so, but I will have to beg for your indulgence if I talk to Filipino. Kasi I think mas ma-express ko yung sarili ko in the Filipino language. And studies show that if mag-communicate tayo sa ating primary birth language, mas maganda yung registration sa mind. Okay? So let's do it. Okay? Next slide, please. My objectives are the following. Help you manage anxiety if you are experiencing one, or at least prevent it from becoming pathological or a disorder. And with that, assist you in adapting to new methods. I'm sure everything has changed for you in the way you do things, no? Especially sa online learning. And yung lastly, strengthening individual resilience. Because if we are resilient individually, then we can weather any storm that is thrown upon us. And now, our main problem is the pandemic. Next slide, please. Let me start off with these three words, three concepts that are used interchangeably, but they are actually different from one another. Stress, anxiety, and depression. What is stress? Next, please. Stress is our body's, mind and body's response or reaction to a real or imagined threat, event, or change. So basta we feel a threat, may change, no? Our body, our mind can have different sorts of response or reaction. Pwede pang ang physical Pwedeng masakit ang ulo mo, okay? Or nasi-CR ka, or may palpitations ka. So, those are physical manifestations of stress. Pwede rin hindi ka makafocus or you become irritable when you're stressed. But stress is all too common used negatively. Meron kasing talagang eustress, the right amount of stress that drives us to perform well. Yan yung nagpo-push sa'yo para ma-promote, okay? Para makakuha ng bonus, yun yung eustress. Sa mga estudyante, yan yung nagpo-push sa kanila to study harder, to pass a subject, or even get scholastic honors. Siguro yung lagi nating na kokonote sa stress ay yung distress or negative stress. That is when our level of stress is either too high or too low, so that our body and mind begin to respond negatively to the stressors. Siguro sabi ninyo, how can a too low level of negative stress impact us? Remember, kapag hindi na masyado challenging yung job mo, parang you get bored, you don't perform too well, you even want to resign kasi wala nang challenge. Yes, too low level of stress is not good either. Next slide, please. Okay. Ano bang ingredients ng stress? No? Kasi alam natin, sabi natin, it can be internal, nasa isip natin, no? It bothers us, or it can be external. Pero what is it in our stressors can trigger stress? So we have 4 things: novelty, unpredictability, threat to the ego, and loss of sense of control. Novelty. Kaya nga, di ba, yung coronavirus was called novel coronavirus? And true enough, this is something that we haven't experienced before. Professor De Vera alluded to it many times earlier. Sabi niya, this is unprecedented. Okay? Sa mga, kahit in my age, no, I haven't really experienced na parang ilang buwan na hindi ka lalabas, no? Siguro yung mga martial law babies, no, they felt it na hindi sila, may mga restrictions, but it was just for a couple of months, I suppose. This is indeed novel. This is something new. And unpredictable, no? We didn't know it. It just came as a surprise noong December to January, and it swept us, no? So when something is so unpredictable, we aren't prepared for, that is bound to cause us stress. So ano pa? Threat to the ego. In the context of the pandemic again, when you are working, you ask yourself, why am I not able to produce or to perform like the way I used to? I was listening to Professor De Vera kanina, sabi niya, some people feel guilty. I have all the luxury na work from home, I can sleep early, wala nang traffic. Okay, pagising ko, breakfast, upo na ako agad sa laptop ko. Pero bakit ganun pa rin? So, and ngayon, no, maraming nalilay off, maraming nagka-cut down ng mga companies. So, laging merong proverbial fear. Ako na ba yung susunod? No, will they let me go? This pandemic has definitely taken away our sense of control. Wala tayong control sa situation. It is the pandemic that is controlling us. It has dictated us to stay inside our homes, to limit our movements. So, and we all know that when there is uncertainty, when there is lack of control, that is bound to cause some anxiety and even sense of internal psychosocial agitation. Next please. Now we go on to depression. Okay? Stress is not pathological, no? But when you have too much stress, then that can lead to mga tinatawag naming mental health conditions, mental illnesses. One of which is depression. My patients would always ask me, ano pong kaibahan ng depression at anxiety? Picture it this way. Depression is when everything is low and slow motion. Anxiety is when you feel keyed up, parang mabilis, restless, hindi ka mapalagay. So can you picture it already? So that you would know when someone asks you, even your students would ask you, depressed po ba ako, ma'am? Or may anxiety po kaya ako? Even your family members, no? So, depressed, 9 yung symptoms dito. We all get sad every now and then, no? But if you have 5 out of 9 of these symptoms, then you might need to seek professional help, even just for assessment. As I've said, to prevent things from getting worse. Isa pa, as to say that you are indeed depressed, no? It should have lasted for at least 2 weeks. Kasi alam naman natin yung mga estudyante natin, pag nag-break sa kanilang mga boyfriend or nag-break sa kanilang girlfriend, they would say, I am depressed. Pero after 1 week or 2 weeks, yan, may bago ng nililigawan or may bago ng boyfriend. Were they really depressed? Probably they were just adjusting to the situation. Yun yung timeline. At least 2 weeks, you have more of these symptoms, most of these symptoms, and of course, it affects your daily life. No? The moment na naapektuhan na yung pag-aaral ng isang estudyante o yung trabaho ng isang tao or yung relationship mo, no? Imagine kung lagi kang galit, irritable ka, tapos wala ka ng energy, wala kang motivation. Pag niyaya ka, ayoko, dito na lang ako sa bahay. Kayo na lang umalis. Sasabihin mo sa asawa mo. And even there is no more sex in your married life. Parang wala ka na rin gana doon. Tapos your thoughts are so negative. May feelings of worthlessness. Tapos hindi ka makafocus pag nagtatrabaho ka. And worst of all, you have thoughts of suicide. Can also be like passive thoughts of wanting to die. Sana hindi na ako magising bukas. Sana as I am crossing the street, I'm run over by a truck. No? These are symptoms of depression. Pero meron ding changes sa sleep and eating patterns. Ito naman, pwedeng may go both ways. Pwedeng you eat less or you eat more, no? Nag-i-stress eating, yun yung tawag natin. And sa sleep, hindi lang hindi makatulog. Yung iba dyan, sleeping a lot. So these are the two symptoms of depression na hindi lang low. Can also be increased yung eating mo at increased yung sleeping mo. Okay? So I hope I have clarified what stress is, how different it is from depression. And now let's go on to anxiety. Kasi ito naman yung talagang what is really happening around us. Of course, in my clinical practice, I see an increase in depression cases among my patients, but there is definitely a lot of anxiety going on around us. Just like stress, we have normal level of anxiety and pathological anxiety. Ano yung normal anxiety? Normal anxiety is adaptive because it serves to improve people's functioning or well-being. Imagine, no, if wala kang kahit konting anxiety about the pandemic, kung wala ka nun, lalabas ka ng bahay, wala kang mask. Hindi ka nagdadala ng alcohol. And, ano pa? You will not practice physical distancing. So wala kang pakialam kung masyadong malapit na sa'yo yung isang taong umuubo, hindi ka nagiging uncomfortable. Diba? Yun siguro yung hindi normal. Pero once you go out, you make sure you wear your mask and you have your alcohol with you, you only go out when it's really necessary, that is normal form of anxiety. But if it affects your functioning and it interferes with your sense of well-being, then it could be pathological. Example again. So kung sobrang anxious ka, hindi ka nalalabas ng bahay, okay? Kahit kailangan mong mamili ng grocery, hindi ka na mag-grocery Dahil sa sobrang anxiety mo, kahit masamang-masama na yung pakiramdam mo, okay? Appendicitis na pala, hindi ka na makakilos. Hindi ka pupunta sa hospital, pumutok na yung appendicitis mo dahil sobra yung anxiety mo. Then, your safety is put on the line. So next slide, please. I will just be discussing briefly, in passing with you, yung two most common forms of anxiety that we see nowadays. We have the generalized anxiety disorder and the panic disorder. The hallmark of generalized anxiety is excessive anxiety and worrying. And you tend to worry on everyday issues of life, no? Hindi siya major, okay? Pero like naku, baka bukas mag ECQ na ECQ na naman. Naku, baka bukas magkaroon ng COVID yung mga kapitbahay ko. So lahat, marami kang wino-worry. And it is also affecting both physical and mental aspects. Meron kang mga physical symptoms like you feel fatigue, you have muscle pains, tension in your body, no? Mentally, it affects your focus, your concentration, di ka na makaisip, and even your mood. You become irritable. Next, please. We also have panic disorder. So kung yung generalized, parang lagi kang nag-worry. Generalized nga throughout the day. No? Laging may sense of worry. It's always there. The panic disorder peaks. It has a peak and a trough. Meaning, okay ka lang pero bigla kang kakabahan, ninervyusin, tapos bababa, mawawala. So would you say, mas okay na lang yung panic disorder kesa sa generalized anxiety disorder? Kasi yung panic disorder, nawawala din. Well, no. Kasi yung panic disorder, it comes without a warning. You're not prepared for that. Bigla siyang darating. Kunyari, nagle-lecture ka, tapos bigla kang kinabahan. Makabog ang dibdib mo, di ka makahinga, nagpapawisan ka. So, mahirap din ang panic disorder. And the problem with that, magkaroon ka lang ng 2-3 panic attacks. Lagi mo na siyang wino-worry, kailan na naman kaya siya darating? Darating ba siya pag nagbo-board meeting kami? Pag nagpipresent ako sa board, okay, sa department meeting, pag nagzo-zoom kami, kaya mahirap din ang panic disorder. Next, please. Okay. So, have you ever really wondered why there is much anxiety? Aside from sinabi natin na it's novel, it's unpredictable, and it has really taken away our sense of control, no? Andun lahat ang ingredients ng stress. Pero bakit nga ba? Particularly sa pandemic na ito, sa COVID-19 pandemic. Kasi alam natin na mode of transmission is through respiratory droplets. Magsalita ka lang, actually hindi lang umubo hindi lang umubo yung katabi mo. Magsalita ka lang, pwede ka nang makakuha ng virus. Diba? Kaya, did you notice sa mga elevators, may nakalagay, please avoid talking. Kasi it's such an enclosed space, and if they talk, then there's a probability na naglalabas sila ng virus. And pet peeve ko po yan, no? I will be really honest with you. Pet peeve ko yan. Pag sumasakay ako ng elevator and may mga nag-uusap, I'll just point to that, no? Sabihin ko, ipo-point ko sa kanila yung avoid talking signage there. Kasi meron pa ring chance na kahit nakamask kami pareho, may chance pa rin na naglalabas siya ng virus, and I'm not willing to take that chance. Number 2, bakit ang taas ng anxiety natin? Ang bilis kasi kumalat, di ba? Meron nga akong nabalitaan isang doktor, okay? Nag-opera pa siya kaninang umaga, tapos mamaya nasa emergency room na. Ganon kabilis. Sabi, bakit ganon? We don't really know. They say several days, no? Yung incubation period. Pero you can start manifesting the symptoms really, really fast. You might not know it. You have already caught it. So, ano pa? Bakit ang taas ng anxiety? Because the symptoms are really very severe. Ma-ICU ka, pwede kang ma-ICU. And hindi lang infection, hindi lang siya cough. Some studies are showing that there is really effect on the brain, no? Neurologists would know that. So, ang severe ng symptoms. And, well, being a psychiatrist, I must tell you, meron siya talagang impact sa ating mental health. There's also much anxiety kasi wala naman talagang gamot. Wala pa tayong vaccine. What the doctors are doing now is more of parang mga anecdotal experiences, no? And the anxiety is also caused by extensive media coverage and widespread global connectivity. Kahit nga social media, meron pa rin mga makikita kang mga mga news, lumalabas sa feed mo about the pandemic. Ang mas nakakatakot pa, no? Basta may makita ka diyang itim, condolence na agad. So sabi mo, COVID kaya yun? So, there is really much anxiety around us with this pandemic. Next, please. Ano yung key worries related to the coronavirus pandemic? You know this all too well, no? Baka kayo magkasakit or yung maiuwi ninyo sa pamilya ninyo. Kaya nga 'di ba yung nagbalik na yung yung iba, they're asked to report in the office. Ang worry nila tuwing lalabas sila, baka maiuwi ko sa anak ko or sa magulang ko na elderly. So they start making extreme measures for the safety of their loved ones. Nagkukulong sila sa kwarto, hindi na sila nakikipag-usap. Okay? Perpetually naka-isolate sila. Although they still go home. But the social contact is much, much reduced. Yung pangalawa, okay, is should also be taken into account. Hindi lang natin alam, no? Pero I hear some people say, naubos na yung savings ko. In our profession, no, I know there are some doctors in the audience. You can relate to this, na we don't see patients like we used to. Siguro yung mga infectious specialists, yes, yung mga pulmonologists, no? They have more patients, their practice is not affected. But what about surgeons? Yung mga elective procedures, those who do elective procedures, dermatologists, no? So how is this affecting their lives, their practice? Yung iba, no, they worry because na-reduce na yung work hours nila. Meron silang pay cut. And hanggang kailan magkakaroon ng moratorium ang bangko, no? Hindi naman matatapos yung utang mo. I mean, hindi naman nababawasan ng utang. Meron lang konting moratorium, but you will still have to pay for that. Another cause for concern is yung testing. Magkano na nga ba ang swab test ngayon? Kahapon lang meron akong text message kasi doktor ako eh. So may text message ako sa relative ko asking saan daw ba may libreng testing. Okay? So I don't think there's a lot free testing. Pero yung cost ng testing ay napakamahal. Nung minsan nga ako ay nag-mall, no? Pero okay, I'll have to clarify that. Nag-mall ako kasi meron akong kailangang bilhin. Pero may narinig ako dalawang nag-uusap, no? Na sales clerk. Sabi nung isa, nag-apply nga ako eh. Pero kasi COVID testing ako, mahal-mahal. Wala naman akong ibabayad. Paano ako magtatrabaho pag end of contract ko dito? Diba? Parang sabi ko, it struck me, no? May mga kanya-kanya tayong concerns. Pero yung concern niya, for him to be able to continue living and providing for his family, meron siyang malaking balakid kasi hindi siya makapagpa-testing. And of course, ito, yung sinasabi natin na each time na lumalabas ka ng bahay para pumasok, mag-commute, you're exposing yourself. But what can we do? No? Ang makokontrol lang natin is yung ating mga precautions. Wear a mask, practice physical distancing, always bring alcohol with you. That is as much as we can do. And I think that's good enough. Yun lang kasi yung makokontrol natin eh. So you see, we recognize what we cannot control, and that which we can control, that is what we have to work on. Hindi na pwede yung wino-worry mo pa kung hanggang kailan tong pandemic na to. We don't know that, no? Nasabi na rin yun kanina. We don't know that. Pero ang makokontrol natin is lower the risk of us contracting the virus. That's what we should focus on. Next, please. Okay. I looked for this study kasi alam ko kayo na nasa teaching profession, nasa mga universities, nasa mga school, no? Gusto nyong malaman ano nga bang impact nito sa inyo. Alam nyo personally, alam mo, I am affected by this. You know that. Pero in a general sense, ako lang ba? Guess what? 34% said in a UK study done last May 2020, 34% said that their mental health and well-being and their families is causing them greater anxiety and stress. So nag-worry din sila. Hindi lang para sa sarili nila, pero pati sa family members nila. Kasi nakikita nila lang ngayon, day in, day out, 24/7, nasa bahay sila. So nakikita nila yung effect ng pandemic sa mga anak nila, sa pamilya nila. Meron nga akong napanood kahapon sa YouTube ba yun? Nakita nyo ba yun? Yung batang umiiyak. Gusto ko ng totoong teacher. Sino pong nakapanood nun? Gusto ko ng totoong teacher. So iyak siya ng iyak. Oo nga naman, hindi totoong teacher yung nakikita niya kasi nasa gadget. Nakikita lang niya sa gadget yung teacher niya. So, what else? 35% of teachers were experiencing heightened stress and anxiety as a result of preparing work for pupils to complete at home. Nagtuturo din po kasi ako. Okay? And I was really close to giving up my teaching load. Kasi ang hirap pala ng Canvas. Ano bang ginagamit ninyo sa OLFU? Ang hirap ng Canvas. Ang hirap ng gumawa ng anong tawag doon, parang mga
Blueprint.
videos. Ano yun? Blueprint. Yes, blueprint. Thank you. Ang hirap gumawa ng blueprint. Mag-video ako, no? So paano ko magre-record, no? So ang hirap talaga. And after making, Canvas din pala kayo, no? Okay, so after making the blueprint, ano na ang kinakaharap natin ngayon? Yung how we carry out our modules. No, hindi lang natapos ang paggawa ng blueprint Yung module na ngayon, carrying it out, employing it, enforcing it, doon na natin nararamdaman yung higher level of stress. Mas tumaas pa. No? In this study, 59% sa primary school, 49% sa secondary teachers. Bakit mas mataas? Kasi hindi lang yung sarili natin yung naapektuhan. We see our students, we see our pupils online struggling. So, nararamdaman natin yon. Kaya pala mas tumaas pa. Akala natin mahirap na yung paggawa ng modules. Mas mahirap pa palang i-roll out ang modules. Tama po ba? Can you relate to that? Okay. Next, please. So why are we talking about anxiety? Specifically, adults' anxiety. No? Bakit hindi na lang children's anxiety, students' anxiety? Kasi para matulungan ko sila. Pero kasi dapat yung sarili muna ninyo, sarili muna natin. Kasi our anxiety can pass on to the students. And by helping you, like what OLFU is doing, by helping anxious adults and teachers cope with these challenging circumstances for your own mental health, then we are preparing you to be able to help your students. Makes sense, right? Kayo muna. Kasi kung kayo mismo, you're not calm, you're not well, No? Hindi lang hindi nyo magagawa yung tungkulin ninyo, hindi rin nyo matutulungan ang mga bata. Next, please. Okay. This was drafted by the Human and the Philippine Council for Mental Health. It has a very small print, but I will discuss it to you individually. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. But before that, ito naman, local study. Because importante din malaman natin, sa Pilipinas ba, ano ba ang reaksyon ng mga teachers? Ano bang ginagawa ng mga teachers to cope during this pandemic, during online education? Ito yung May 2020 umpisa pa lang to. So, 56% did not feel bored staying at home during quarantine. Pero almost kalahati din felt bored. So, half-half. No? But at least 93.1% felt positive spending time with their family during the quarantine. Marami yung nagsabi na, ay, ito pala yung hilig ng anak ko. So they got to know their children better. Laki na pala ng anak ko. Hindi na pala siya mahilig sa mga cartoons. Iba na ang hilig niya ngayon. So that was a good thing, right? You had more time to spend with your children, with your family and loved ones. So how did the Filipino teachers cope? 25.6% preferred watching television. 23.8% preferred cooking and spending time with other activities such as doing exercise. Okay, so ang dami nilang mga coping mechanisms. This is what I call resilience, no? May nag-exercise, yung iba natutulog, yung iba, si teacher marunong nang mag-mobile games. Okay? Some started writing, gardening, or just cleaning the house, surfing the internet, praying, reading, and working with forms from the school or from the department. So, ang daming ginawa ni teacher. Kayo ba, ano bang ginawa ninyo nung walang pasok? How did you really spend the early part of the pandemic? Did you also feel bored? Next, please. So how do we cope in all this? We are setting our mind, yung mindset natin. One is learn to accept uncertainty. There's really nothing certain in this world, no? Ano lang ang sigurado tayo? The jokes would say, tax and death. But I don't want to look at death, no? It's the tax that we are most certain about. Nothing is certain, really. Sabi nga nung isa namang very morbid thought, when you cross the street, you don't really know what's gonna happen, right? So how do we learn to accept uncertainty? Next, please. We tell ourselves also that it's okay not to feel okay. Meron daw nito sa Netflix, no? It's okay not to feel okay. Ngayong time ng pandemic, no? Our reaction, kahit pa sabihin, I feel anxious, I feel tired, parang I don't have a lot of energy, I don't perform as well as I used to. Well, guess what? It's okay not to feel okay. Your reaction is normal in this abnormal situation. And you're doing just fine. You tell yourselves, kahit pa 25% o 50% na lang ang output ko ngayon, okay, I'm doing fine given the circumstances that I'm in. So self-love, self-affirmation, it's okay not to feel okay. Next, please. So, focus on controlling those things that you can control. Kasi di ba dati, nung wala pang pandemic, no? Stress na stress tayo sa traffic. Ano ba yan? Traffic, no? Malilate ako. Pero, ano nga ba yung mga makokontrol mo ba talaga yung traffic? Well, yeah. Somehow, if I leave early, yun na yun. Yun yung lumilipat yung mindset mo. What can you control? Okay. Siguro ngayon, ang mga issues, naglalagang internet ko. Do you have control over that? Maybe not. But how do you change your perspective? What can you control? Will it help if I make a recording of my lecture? Kaya nga nauso rin yung asynchronous learning, di ba? Kasi the students also can view it later pag okay na yung kanilang connection. So, ganun din tayo as teachers. We try to adapt. Kaya nga the second part of my objective is trying to adapt to new methods, to new teaching methods. Next. Shift perspectives. What do we mean by this? Next. Nabanggit na ni Professor yung gratitude list. No? And, it's human nature to look at the glass half empty rather than half filled. But what I want to emphasize about the gratitude list is it does not have to be something really big. Minsan nga, forgive me, pero ang gratitude ko ay nag-cancel yung isang patient. So, mas maaga akong makakapagpahinga. Okay? I'm sure naman magre-reschedule siya. I'm sure, siguro hindi naman emergency yung reason for her appointment that time, kaya she could afford to cancel. You see, may mga little things that we can have gratitude, we can be thankful for. What else? Like, siguro, okay, mabilis akong nakasakay ng elevator at mag-isa lang ako sa elevator. Diba? So, parang hinahanap mo talaga yung little joys mo. Little things that you can be thankful for. And no matter how small they are, no matter how trivial they may seem, okay, you try to savor. Problema kasi, we were so used to the fast-paced world na hindi na natin nasasavor yung little things. But right now, we have all the time in the world to savor yung mga little blessings that we encounter each day. So I ask you, what are you grateful for today? Have you thought about it? Okay, next slide, please. Self-care, no? Again, needs no further elaboration. Even before the pandemic, we have been advocating this. Eating healthy, well-balanced meals, exercising regularly, get adequate sleep, and avoid excessive alcohol and drug use. Kasi yung iba, no, inuman. Oo nga, no? Kasi they want to be socially connected with their friends. Di sila nagkikita-kita, nagiging inuman naman. So, not in that way. Yung exercise regularly, sabi nung iba, paano ko mag-exercise? Sarado ang gym. May quarantine, bawal lumabas. You know what I've been doing? No? Because I live in a condo nga, so, ang tagal ng elevator. So, I pace back and forth. That is my exercise. That is my walking exercise. Tagal ng elevator. I live in the 23rd floor, no? Maybe some of you can relate. Hindi ko naman kaya mag-walk from 23rd floor to sa ibaba, ground floor. So what I do, I take half, no? I take the stairs for half of the way and then take the elevator again. So we have to be innovative and creative how we live in this new normal. Hindi porke pandemic may excuse. How do you accommodate? How do you adapt to this new normal? Next, please. Okay. Take deep breaths, stretch or meditate. Kasi kung ang lecture mo, ang classes mo, one after another, okay? So, after ng isang class, pupunta ka sa kabilang class, nakapag-break ka nga ba? Maybe when you take a break, pwede mong sabayan yung mga estudyante. Natatandaan ko nung elementary ako, lagi yung merong, proverbs na nakasulat sa blackboard. Tapos si teacher will start asking us, what does it mean for you? Natatandaan nyo ba yon? Can we bring it back? Like just to instill inspiration and hope for our students and us, because it helps us meditate. It helps us think about the present situation. Pwede bang before you start, merong food for thought? Or pwede rin bang before you start, meron kang 5-minute meditation clip from YouTube na ipi-play. So kung nung bata tayo, laging may prayer before starting class. Ito naman, okay, this is also a form of spirituality, instilling hope. So you break the cycle, you break the monotony, the stress of it. So yun yung pang-recharge mo, reboot. Or pwede rin maglakad-lakad, After a 15-minute break, maglalakad-lakad ka. Kasi hindi po pwedeng nakaupo tayo, sabi, alam to ng mga doctors, no? The new heart disease is yung parang the new pandemic is immobility. Kasi pag hindi ka nag-move, hindi ka nag-exercise, you start becoming obese, you develop diabetes, no? Kaya you have to move. keep on moving. Next, please. About updating yourselves with the information. Yes, facts minimize fear, but next, take breaks from media. Baka ma-overload kayo, ma-overwhelm kayo. So, and when we ask seeking facts, next please, we also ensure that you only rely on mga reliable sources of information. Maybe you can just choose one or two sources of information. Pwedeng DOH, WHO, or CDC ng Amerika. Pero wag namang magpa-subscribe sa lahat ng mga Viber groups, no? Lahat na ng Viber groups kasama ka. So mai-stress ka lang doon. Tama na yung one or two reliable sources of information. And staying connected is very, very important. Laging sinasabi social distancing, but we would like to correct that. It should have been called physical distancing, but not social isolation. So we still have to be connected because man is really social by nature. Next po. Okay. Talk to someone. Your colleagues. How are you adapting to this new normal? May problema ba sa new methods mo? Okay. Maybe you can share and learn from each other. Next. And you also check on others. Kumustahan? Diba? Kumustahan. Kasi you may be okay, but your colleagues may not be. So you ask them also. Okay, next. So I will be giving you this, a copy of my slides. So let's run through it very, very quickly. One after another. Mental health tips for educators, balancing life and remote teaching. Next po. Sunod-sunod na para lang they know, control the controllable during COVID-19. Next. Carve out time for self-care to maintain your mental health. Next. And get your body moving to help your mental wellness. Next. Model self-compassion. Next. Set reasonable expectations for yourself and others. So hindi naman talaga doable yung iba. Communication is vital for all of us. Next. And be unapologetic. Kung yun lang ang natapos mo, okay lang. Next. And a dedicated workspace can improve mental wellness. Wag po sa kwarto. Wag po sa bedroom ninyo. Because that is sacred. That is for rest. Next. Set office hours while remote teaching. And finally, next, reach out. Reach out to your friends, but reach out to your superiors, supervisors, mentors, boss, department head, chair. Let them know how they can help you. And next, okay, you can go through this on your own, how to support your students. And next, I have a very, yes, please, next po, I have a very, and resilience is very important. Next po. This, I have a food for thought for you. Can we still do the meditation? Or hindi na po? This is a 5-minute meditation yata. Can we still do this?
Doktora?
Oo.
Oo. Doktora, we can do po 1 minute.
Okay, just 1 minute of the meditation so they get a feel of what meditation is. Okay, I'll tell you when to stop it. Next, can we play it now? But you'll have a copy of this and you can look it in YouTube. You can share it with your students. Parang prayer ninyo when you start the morning. So you all feel refreshed before you start your ano. Okay, here we go.
Inviting you now to gently close your eyes or have a soft, receptive gaze on what is in front of you. Having a comfortable and yet dignified and alert posture. Noticing physical sensations such as touch, pressure, or points of contact between your body and a chair or the bed.
Okay, so that's how it starts, but I hope you can really give it a try at your homes, no? And make it a practice every day because it's really recharging. So thank you, OLFU, Our Lady of Fatima University, and Fatima University Medical Center.
Thank you so much, Dr. Luziminda Katigbak, for helping us with different ways to deal with anxiety and embrace new ways in reinforcing our individual resilience, especially these days. We would also like to acknowledge the president of Fatima University Medical Center, who is also with us in this webinar, Dr. Vicente O. Santos Jr. Good afternoon, Doc. And we would like to remind all our participants that before we proceed to the Q&A part of our webinar, we have the link for our evaluation. Kindly take note of this link and please accomplish it after our webinar today. So we shall now discuss the questions that some of our participants sent earlier in the Q&A box. And we'd like to request Dr. Katigbak and Professor Rick to turn on their cameras for this part of our webinar. The first question is addressed to uh, Professor Rick. It's from Raylan David. It is written here, appreciated your wonderful insights. So how do we draw the line between accepting the new normal and not being hopeful in the previous normal, that the previous normal rather will never happen? Or are they in the same box?
Okay, that's a very interesting clarification question, and I'd like to clarify it. It's about us being able to look forward. I mean, the tendency usually of people is they would, and I'm thinking it from the tendency of people is they would love to go back to the wonderful times, the beautiful days. And that is actually what is happening now when we are being challenged. There's always a tendency of hope is about something better, and that for me is that is as expected. But the challenge now really is, as this pandemic prolongs and we are now anticipating, I hope I can go back. I'll be very honest about it. You will get more frustration because the mindset of people in the mind is when it's a new normal, it's supposed to be better. And don't get me wrong here. I've been reading and seeing also many saying, the future, the new normal will get better. when we do something like that, from my end, we are conditioning people to look for something better. The thing is that people will compare it to what they had before, and that's why there is that struggle. This is the way I see it, and that's why I just like as mentioned also by Doctora. In my case, I would usually have certain sessions with people around, and I say, you know what we need to do. I really appreciated if we only had more time of what she presented to us, the 5 minutes meditation, because a meditation will bring us into what is called mindfulness, and mindfulness is accepting what is in front of us, and that's the way I would see it. That's where I'd like to put it. Can we introduce mindfulness in our life? And what is mindfulness? Can you learn to close your eyes for a few seconds, a few minutes? Because when you close your eyes, then our senses is enriched, and then when our senses are enriched, okay, that's where we are able to get to appreciate better moving forward. If it's about, if we continue to look at the future in terms of looking at it from sana ganito, we'll never be able to move on. So that's where I'm coming from. Can we introduce mindfulness in our life? And mindfulness is about moments of silence, closing our eyes. That's why people who are, I hope you don't mind, who are blind or missing some of their, who are has some incapabilities, right? They are more, their senses are more, are heightened. And that's why, that's my response. Pagka kasi wala kang deficiency, physical, you take things for granted. That's my answer, Wilson.
So mindfulness is very important, Professor Ricky. So just to follow up, no, there's another question here from Mr. Peter Paul Sehoko. What can I say, or what can I do about an office mate, no, who is so much, or who has so much obsession to work, so that he or she can avoid too much stress in the workplace? We know a lot of people who are like this, that they do not know how to slow down from work, even from this new setup. So what advice can we give them?
I give that to Doctora first.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I I hope no, you're not also stressing on this one. You're getting stressed about your coworker, no? Maybe it's more for concern. You have concern, but I hope you don't getting stressed. So this is my suggestion to you. Kasi if you tell her, alam mo ikaw puro ka trabaho, dapat mag-relax ka naman. And I'm sure you've been telling this person that for the longest time. Maybe your approach would be to invite this person, hoy, meron online webinar pa rin, yung webinar nakaka-stress na. Pero merong online, webinar on plants or cooking. Attend tayo nito. So parang nililid mo siya to other options without becoming judgmental on her personality. Maybe that's her personality, but introducing this person to options like attend tayo nito, no? Baka she might discover her other side, and she might discover how wonderful it is to be more relaxed. Maybe that's one of the options you have.
Yes.
I hope that helps.
In my case, I'll just share this. During this pandemic, I am a bit more careful personally in approaching people, even if I am a behavioral psychologist facilitator, because there's a lot of sensitivities in people. And sometimes our approach might not be taken from a perspective of positivism by someone. And that's one of the things I've been hearing with many, that they are caring about the people around them, which is good. But then they say, but when I start talking to them, parang they don't see it, they don't appreciate it. And then I ask this question. So are you caring because you want to be appreciated? You might be frustrated. Because people's sensitivity, remember what I mentioned earlier, our thinking has been hijacked by our emotions. That's, Doctor, I hope you don't mind, I'll just use that also. Has been hijacked. And when it's been hijacked, you don't think properly. So there are cases, people who wants to assist, they feel, hindi naman ako appreciated, might as well don't assist because you just feel, as Dr. mentioned, you will feel stressed because you want to assist, but then you're not appreciated. I feel we got to be more sensitive in today's times. We really got to be more sensitive. That's where I'd like to add on to it.
Thank you so much, Professor Rick. And I guess that's also in relation with the what you shared earlier, that we also have to be mindful of other people and be more considerate as well, right? Because the more that we bring into our homes the setup of the office or the physical workplace, the more stress it causes us, right? So I think it's also a good suggestion for our colleagues to set a specific time in terms of the work that is being done at home. Kasi there are some colleagues who are working beyond work hours, right? And even sending emails or messages in the midnight, no? So let's try to avoid those practices in order to lessen the stress that we cause also to our colleagues. And in the interest of time, we'll answer this last question from Dr. Gianni Serrano. How do you relax if there are three of you at home, no, working at home, and you stay only in one room? No, Wi-Fi connection is best at that room. It's a mental distress. So this will be our last question from Dr. Serrano.
Okay. Yeah, please, Dr. Luz, if you'd like to
Okay.
answer.
Siguro we live in a parang talaga yung iba mga condo maliliit. So ang suggestion ko, can you invest in a headphone so you don't get stressed? Kasi if you hear each other, that yung noise itself is stressful. Tapos maybe you can position yourselves na back to each other. Kasi if you see the face of someone na nai-stress na siya sa kausap niya, tapos magkaharap kayo, ay, nako, talagang pati ikaw mai-stress. So baka pwede yung back to each other para hindi mo nakikita yung reaction. Or maybe, para you have a little time by yourself also, yung 1 hour na sacred time na yon, sige 10 a.m. mag-break time ka. Tapos, isa lang ang natitira doon, di ba? Or 2 tao. Tapos 11 a.m., magbe-break yung isa, tapos 12 noon, magbe-break din yung isa. How does that sound for you? Para meron ka pa rin 1 hour na ikaw lang nandun, tapos that person also has 1 hour to stay in the dining room. So para hindi kayo affected by each other. So I would strongly recommend yung back to each other. Siguro kung may window, yung isa naka-face pa nga sa window, tapos mag-ikutan kayo kasi refreshing view yung window, nag-iikutan kayo. So I hope that helps.
Yes, and definitely, Dr. I agree with those suggestions and advice as well. I'd like to add to this. Okay, let us not look at space as a limitation. For me, it's that one first, because tendency of people is always to say, maliit lang yung lugar namin, and all of this. Actually, I even have a session, which is how to manage disruptions online. Imagine, because I'm hearing a lot of people complaining also, paano kung may disruption? So where I'm coming from is, it's the conditioning of how we look at things. For me, space, that's all over it. There's so much we can do with space. But if we start saying it's limited, there's parameter, automatically you're putting a lot of pressure already in the way you do things. And in addition to that, when I share this, it's very important. Okay, let us assume you're working on what I call a space allocation. Instead of saying limited space, use space allocation. Because that's also one of the things, right? Psychologists would look for you proper terminologies. If you're not careful of our words, it can affect us. So for me, space allocation. This is the space allocated to us. There's 3 of us. What do we do about it? Then I would advise, go for what is called, what are your protocols of engagement? Take note of the words, protocols of engagement. Hindi kayo pwede mag-away because there's 3 of you in that space. So that's called engagement. The question, what's your protocol? And I guess because I also work for government for 20 years already, one of the things that I have learned in government is protocol. Protocol. And what is protocol? Respeto. You need to respect each other. Hindi pwedeng, "Oh, ako muna. Remember what I also shared. Hindi pwedeng ganon. So, protocol of engagement, and then, conditioning that we don't have limited space. We have given space. How do we work around it? That's what
Okay.
I'd like to add.
Thank you so much, Professor De Vera and Dr. Katigbak. For our participants, if you have further questions, you may directly contact our speakers through their social media sites. Okay, and we'd also like to inform everyone that the certificates will automatically be sent to your emails once you accomplished our evaluation of today's webinar. So before we end this mental health webinar, let us listen to the message of the President of Fatima University Medical Center, Dr. Vicente O. Santos Jr.
Rico.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Doc Vic, we can
Hello?
hear you. Good afternoon, Doc Vic. Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much for asking me to give these closing remarks. I actually sat through the entire webinar. I guess because of the camera, you can see I'm in my car. But um, uh, I parked the car to give due recognition to our two guests, Professor De Vera and Dr. Akatibak. Um, you have given both inspirational and practical pointers on how to deal with this new pandemic. Everything has changed as far as circumstances and risk and problems. But what has not changed is who we are and what we stand for. We still have our goals and our mission in Fatima. And what hasn't changed also is the way we value you. That's why we did not just think of your physical well being. We know that this is stressful for everyone. And I'd like to commend all of you for taking the hit in one way or another, but still moving on. So maraming salamat both to all of us. We're all in this together, and together we will come out stronger. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vic Santos Jr., the FUMC President. And with that, we formally end this webinar entitled Let's Talk Mental Health, organized by the University Faculty Development Center and the Human Resources Department. Thank you very much also to our speakers, Professor Ricardo De Vera and Dr. Luz Biminda Katigbak, for sharing your knowledge with us this morning, especially in addressing our emotional and psychological well-being. Thank you so much also to all our university and medical center administrators, college deans, and heads who are with us today, and most especially to the employees of Our Lady of Fatima University and Fatima University Medical Center who attended this webinar. We also thank the Research, Development, and Innovation Center, or RDIC, headed by Dr. Michael Joseph Dino, our technical support group that assisted us in this webinar. Thank you so much to all of you. Once again, we extend our gratitude to everyone who attended our webinar. This is Jilson Tio from the Center for Quality Management saying, God bless, and let us take good care of our emotional health as we continue to do our best in taking care of our customers in these challenging times. Let us stay safe